Hello, and thank you for joining me today for the Sage Intacct Fixed Assets Overview. My name is Linda Pinion, and I'll be your host. Before we look at the solution, let me share our agenda. We'll start out by talking about some of the challenges of fixed assets, and then we'll move to know more about what you're going to see in the solution presentation. We'll finish up by looking at a few key takeaways. For most of us who are not using an automated solution for fixed assets, we're doing that primarily using Excel. And for all of us who are Excel users, we know that it's a great tool for capturing information. However, it does have some cons to using Excel to gather information. And one of those is not having the most accurate, up-to-date information, and also not being assured that that information is accurate. Excel listings for fixed assets does not provide you with support for the information that's on that spreadsheet. So attachments or being able to see the original documents, the source documents for those assets is not part of what you have with that Excel spreadsheet. And then more importantly, because assets are not automated, the depreciation is a manual entry for you. And those manual journal entries are part of your month-end close. And not getting those done in a timely manner or accurately can obviously slow down your month-end process. So today what I want to share with you is a new way to manage your fixed assets, and that's to incorporate that into the Sage Intacct footprint. Today you are probably using accounts payable and general ledger. You may or may not be using purchasing. If you are, that's great, because fixed assets integrates with all three of those applications. So it's a natural thing for you to acquire an asset through purchasing and or accounts payable, put that asset into the fixed asset master, and then have that depreciation calculated automatically and posted into the general ledger. That's the value of moving to an automated solution. So with that automation, you also are going to want visibility, and the visibility into where that asset is and what depreciation has been posted against that asset, and more of the information individually at the asset level. So to do that, you're obviously going to want some reporting capabilities, and for most folks, having those reports on a specific dashboard is the best way to view that information. So we'll take a look at a fixed assets dashboard as well. And then the last thing that I'll mention here is, for some companies and organizations, you may in fact be looking at or doing something with what's called CIP. And CIP is construction in progress, and it is included in the fixed asset solution. So let's go ahead and take a look at the solution in Sage Intacct. So just a landing place here. I've landed on my fixed assets reporting dashboard. Again, this is going to give you a way to have that visibility into your assets. Couple of reports that I have on this particular dashboard. I have an asset by employee report and an asset by location report. If you think about these two reports, this is going to give you the ability to see what employees have what assets. This can be especially helpful if an employee leaves the company. You still have that full visibility into the assets that you need to get back from that employee. The other report here, the assets by location, again, if you are an organization or company that has multiple locations, it could be important for you to know where those assets are physically located. So having the assets by location report could be helpful for you to see that information. So let's come back up and let's take a look at one of these assets. We're going to look at Chuck Darren's record here. Chuck is one of our employees, and this is coming directly from the dashboard. So when we look at this information, we're going right into the asset master. Now, this is an asset, a Lenovo Ultrabook that was purchased. It was brought in through accounts payable. It was then put into service, and ultimately it became assigned to Chuck. So we have all the information about the asset here, and it's all in one place. So let's take a look at a few key pieces of information. So one of the things that you see here is, of course, an asset number, which the system is going to assign. You can put assets into specific classes, and of course there is some setup to this application just like any other application. So you'll set up asset classes and you'll set up asset types. And that's really going to direct where your transactions go. So you're going to have the transactions for that depreciation journal entry, and it's going to know exactly where to post those. And we'll take a look at one of those journal entries in just a moment. You'll also have the date that it was placed in service. This particular asset is on hold. When you post the AP invoice, it's going to move that asset over to the asset master with a status of needs review. So it will come over, it will give you an opportunity to fill in some other missing information that's not known at the time that the AP invoice is posted. And then it will go through a validation, and once it's validated, you will then be able to put it into service. So you would have an in-service date placed in service here. There's also the ability, and you'll see this in just a moment, to have pictures, to have warranties and service details around an asset. You can see that we're keeping track of depreciation over here. You can have a separate asset tag identifying this asset, so that's user defined. You can define that. And then there is a link to the AP bill or bills in this case that are associated with this particular asset, and we'll look at those as well. Because this is a piece of equipment, electronic piece of equipment, there is a serial number. So this might be something that you have on some of your assets as well. And then we talked a little bit about warranty. One thing I will point out down here on this asset master screen is that we are using the dimensions. So just like any other transaction where you have the ability to tag that to dimensions, we tagged it here, of course, to a location, to a department, and to an employee. And so this gives us that dimensional reporting that we all know and love from our dashboards. So as we look at a few of the tabs across, again, we're in the asset master here. You can see that you can have a picture of this. Sometimes that's helpful to see what that asset looks like. You have that full drill down into the AP bill. So in this case, a bill from Lenovo for this piece of equipment. And you can see that this piece of equipment was coded to an account called 1510. Now, the importance here is, remember, we're automating this transaction. So it knows, because of our setup and configuration, that 1510 is the equipment account, and it is tagged or tied to our assets. So if we look at the information underneath the line here, we would see that it is now populated an asset class. It's put in the asset name, the date that it was put into service, and flagged it as an asset. So we have all that information underneath this transaction line here because this is integrated into fixed assets. So we've got all the bill information, and we've got that at the asset level. So we can see if there's more than one invoice as there is here, we've got drill down to all of those AP bills. We also have the ability to look at the financial depreciation. And one of the things that I said was the value here is for Sage Intacct to create that journal entry so that you're not waiting at the end of the month for someone to key in and post a manual journal entry. We can take a look at that journal entry because we have drill down right from this screen, and we can see the depreciation account and the accumulated depreciation account. Again, these come by way of our configuration and our setup. So we have the ability to look at the journal entry for that depreciation right from the information from the drill down on the asset. So if we look at this, we also have service details and we have insurance details. You know, this might be something that you have information about warranty or something needed to be repaired, and so you have the ability to put that information in. This is a routine check periodically that this laptop needs to go through. So this gives you all the information about this specific asset. And remember, you know, one of the other things that we looked at here was the fact that we've got a report that shows us by employee. Additionally, we've got this report of assets by location. And again, you've got the drill down into these IDs. So hyperlinked, you can drill back into that particular asset and you can see the information about that asset. So here's another Lenovo Ultrabook. This one is in fact in service. It's got the asset cost here, and again the drill down to the AP bill. This is a piece of equipment that belongs to a different employee, Jim Joyce. So this gives you all the information that you need in one place, and it really allows you to have everything right here at your fingertips with the drill down back to the AP invoice. If we come back here to our dashboard, you know, one of the things that we talked about was having construction in process. So maybe you have a project that you're doing and you are incorporating assets into that project. So you can set up that CIP item, set that up as a container, if you will, to house all the information that's going into that construction in progress. So let's take a look at a couple of pieces around a CIP. So in my example here, I have a CIP that's set up for an office remodel. And part of that office remodel is to put in some information about the items that I want in that remodel. And I'm buying some things that I'm going to consider assets that are going to ultimately roll in to my asset master and be capitalized. And in my case, I've got three things that I am purchasing. One of them is flooring, the other is material, the other is furniture. I've already capitalized the flooring for that office remodel. I'm still working on the materials and the furniture. So this gives me a way to compartmentalize, to know exactly the components or assets that are within that CIP. And CIP, by the way, is part of the fixed asset solution, so it's not something that you need to purchase additionally. It is part of the core product. So the real value here, obviously, is making sure that you have all the information coming over from accounts payable or purchasing. And remember that purchasing is not required in order to utilize fixed assets. However, if you are issuing a purchase order and then moving over to accounts payable, you'll then put in the information about the asset. When you post the AP invoice, that's when it creates the asset master record and moves that over and places it in a status of needs review. So that's the flow of the process. So let's come back to our PowerPoint and let's review a few of the key takeaways for fixed assets. The first one, obviously, is to automate that fixed asset life cycle. So as you are acquiring assets and placing them into service, you may also change their status along the way. You may, in fact, dispose of that asset, and we certainly have the ability to do that as well. So making sure that you are tracking it from start to finish and automating that process. This is going to allow you to really have a defined path. It's going to control the process better and reduce the risk of you not perhaps getting the proper depreciation and the proper tracking of those assets. It should help you accelerate your monthly close because now you're not going to be doing those manual journal entries. And remember that it integrates both with accounts payable and purchasing, and then obviously goes on forward to post into the general ledger. I would like to leave you with this one customer quote here, and that is the Bay County Medical Care Facility is a skilled nursing facility, and they're using Sage Intacct and using our fixed asset solution. They are a multi-facility type of organization, and so they have multiple facilities, and within these facilities, they all have assets. So their metrics that they're reporting back to us is that they improved their reporting accuracy by 70%. They slashed their monthly close by 90%, so that monthly close cycle by 90%, and they were able to increase gross margin by 50%. Those are some pretty strong metrics. I want to thank you for your time today. If you have any further questions or would like any more information about Sage Intacct Fixed Assets, make sure to contact your Sage Intacct representative.